Well, spring of 1973, or rather, the break, inter-semester break. So during the Christmas vacation, Ghanshyam, Swapan and I went down and purchased a Minolta camera. Second thing that I did was I shifted from 700 Ackerman to 600 Ostrom Avenue. The advantage is in the Ackerman, I will have to climb up the slope of a drumlin up and down every time I want to go home or get out of the home. Whereas Ostrom Avenue was in the plains. And of course, the distance wise, it is only 5 minutes more. Another interesting thing is, it is a home, a place. In the 600 Ostrom is a place where all the rooms are occupied or rented out to Syracuse University students. 3 students sit in the upstairs or in the so-called second floor, and 3 students in the lower floor. When I went in, I met a Nepali student who was doing a course in paper science in the State University of New York, School of Environmental Sciences in the university campus. Well, in the Syracuse University campus. Interestingly, there is no compound wall separating the School of Environmental Sciences from the Syracuse University. And all the students in both campuses can take courses offered in the Syracuse University or the courses offered by the School of Environmental Sciences. In fact, I had my course on remote sensing interpretation in the School of Environmental Sciences taught by Dr. Lily Sandra, and who later on became very famous by his textbook on remote sensing interpretation, co-authored with Kiefer. Lily Sandra and Kiefer has gone through several reprints and revisions. So this young man from Nepal, of course, looked very much like Indian, was also a non-vegetarian, and he was on a fellowship or a scholarship from the Nepal government. That is the difference. I am on a fellowship from International Institute of Education. That fellowship, my fellowship is only for 2 semesters, fall of 1972 and spring of 1973. Beyond the spring of 73, I have to get some kind of assistantship from the Syracuse University Geology Department in order to continue with my studies. And within another 2 weeks, Swapan, during the, in the early part of the spring semester, purchased a soft top Impala car for $75, a green car with a canvas top. And of course, it was a great joy for Chopin because he is mobile. Otherwise, he had to walk or get a ride from to whatever place he wants to go with the Ghanshyam or Ajita. So not only that, Chopin had to get trained as a driver also in Syracuse. So that was actually assisted by Ghanshyam, and Chopin got his license to drive, and Chopin was independent. Chopin was in a 700 Lancaster, and see 700, 500, 700 Ackerman, 600 like that. These numbers actually indicate homes or buildings that are at the corner of a intersection of 2 streets. In other words, that is how their numbering system starts. So, in the first week of spring, 1973, Dr. Rao, who was attached to the Utkal University, came and landed in the home where I and my Nepali friend were staying, because that was the 3rd room available. And this gentleman, Dr. Rao, is firstly a geographer. He was attached to Utkal University in India, in Orissa. He got an award of a postdoctoral Fulbright fellowship. So he came in, and he was an exceedingly nice fellow, a short but a man with a huge girth and round face, everything, well nourished, unlike other average citizen of India, because he was a professor or a reader in Utkal. So As soon as he joined us, he told he will get our breakfast ready every day. In other words, he will have a menu and he will spread the stuff on the breakfast table in the kitchen. In turn, we have to prepare the dinner for him. And what we do, because he comes late, he also goes late to the department around 10 o'clock. Whereas we as students, we have to be there in the campus at least by 8 o'clock. So it is very compulsory. Most of the time, as graduate students, we would not have a first hour class beginning at 8 o'clock. Occasionally there may be, but definitely there will be a lab to do. And of course, I did not have to do any lab. I was still on the fellowship scholarship scheme, so I had registered for 4 courses all run by geology professors, all graduate level courses. Whereas the other man, of course, he was continuing for a degree in paper science, master's degree in paper science. So our stay was very comfortable. Rao, another interesting thing is he makes use of the occasion to travel widely in the United States. Whenever he gets a break or takes a break, he will go to Canada, Canada is across the border, not very far. Not only that, he may have friends over there. Anyway, so then what has happened? And what has happened is, that spring 1973 is very critical because that is the time of the year, like January, February, March, when the faculty decides upon award of the teaching assistantship to the new students who will be coming in by the fall of 73. So in my turn, the faculty will have to decide one way or other whether to award a teaching assistantship or not. However, one great thing I had achieved was I had a grade point average of, in the first semester, 3.75. In other words, I had scored 3 A's in the geology courses I took, and in the foreign language, for me it was English, and there I got a B or a B plus. But the plus and minuses do not matter at all in the final award of the grade. So, grade point average wise, I was, in the outstanding group. 4.0 is the highest grade point average you can get. Well, I have 3.75. And there is also another rule. If your cumulative grade point average is below 3, then below 3 in the sense, if it is not below 2.8, only then you will be allowed to submit a master's thesis. That is 2.8 to 3, 2.8 plus. And if it is a PhD, you have to be having a grade point average of 3.0. In other words, at least an average B is very essential in all the courses toward the what is called a PhD degree you have enrolled and taken examinations on. So, and something about the graduate studies will be very proper here those days. Probably it continues even today. Anyone with a BSc degree or BS degree from the United States will be allowed to, provided the grades are okay, do a master's thesis, do a master's degree, which the 6 credits are awarded for the thesis and 24 credits for courses or coursework. Then if you are going for a PhD beyond masters, each student will have to take what is called 30 credit hours of courses and 30 credit hours or more for PhD research. In other words, beyond a BS degree or a BSc degree, a native student will be able to get a PhD at the conclusion, minimum cumulative credit hours of 90 or anywhere between 90 and 120. And some of the universities insisted on 120 credits, and some other universities in the United States those days, they accepted anywhere between credit hours, some of credit hours between 90 and 120, and some other universities even accepted 90 credit hours. And of course, on the Fridays during lunch hour, there is a session wherein the students will be free to voice their opinion with the faculty, including the chairman, about their grievances. One of the questions from the student side posed to the faculty always was, why would Syracuse University Geology Department insist on a total credit hour of 190 to 120? And invariably, it is somewhere up to 120. Since Dr. Merriam, the chairman of the department, one time he said, "Hey, gentlemen, listen to this. See, we want to make sure that with the PhD degree from Syracuse University, you uphold the standard of the university, the quality of your work all over the world, wherever you go and seek a job. So we want to make sure that you acquire that skill, that knowledge, that determination, that sort of intellectual growth before we award you, before we let you present your PhD thesis." That is the reason. So some people will be allowed to submit present the thesis at the end of 90 credits, 30, in other words, 90 means 60 credits beyond the BSc in terms of courses, and 30 credits or more beyond exclusively for PhD research. So, well, this is the framework or the structure. Then, of course, I was always brooding over the fact that, wondering about the fact that whether I will get support, financial support from the fall semester of 1973. So the January, February, March, early part of March, that is the critical time. That is when the faculty will sit down in their small room, the faculty council, and they deliberate about who is to be given assistance, who is to be given extension, whose assistantship needs to be cut, because they clearly and very quietly but steadily follow the progress of work of each student. In other words, the special thing is that even you are on very exceedingly good terms with your supervisor, he himself will recommend to cut your assistantship. That is something you will never find anywhere else in the world. At least I have not seen the whole world. At least on one hand, I have the Indian situation, and the other hand, the American situation. That is very fair. In other words, if you deserve, you are given this continuation of support. If you don't deserve it, in the assessment, by the assessment of the faculty, including your supervisor has a major role to play. If the supervisor says this guy is no good, he is not very keen about his studies, they will coolly cut off. And that is one of the signals that you get out of the department and go and find something else. So, well, what I do is every week on Wednesday, during the lunch hour, there is a meeting. So, the faculty council, all the 11 professors will participate, plus one graduate student nominee from among graduate students. And this guy is also another peculiar person. I think when I was, my award was decided, Jim Wilson, a guy who later on went to the University of South Carolina as an assistant professor, a senior PhD student, graduate student, he was the student representative. And he will not utter a single word about the deliberations that happened in the council meeting. Because what they do in the meetings, every day they will be monitoring or discussing about what a certain graduate student has been doing, what was the achievement, was it up to the mark according to the faculty, and so on and so forth. So I did not get any reply, any letter informing me that I have been awarded an assistantship. But to my surprise, in the first week of March 1973, that is in the spring semester, I got a letter signed on behalf of Daniel Merriam by our office secretary, Beverly O'Brien. No, one of the stating that I have an award starting of a TA, teaching assistantship, which will take care of my tuition and my food and shelter, etc., and pocket money, starting fall semester of 1973. So I was extremely happy. I told and went out once I got the message in the letter in a sealed envelope. I went to Ghanshyam and Swapan and said, well, I am winning. I can stay and continue toward my PhD. Then I went and met Dr. Miriam and said, sir, thank you, sir. Then he told me, Vic, you are good. Keep it up. No, don't think that this offer is permanent. Unless you have a, correct progress and achievements academically, don't think that this will continue, the offer will continue. You have to be very careful about what you do, how you do, and when you do. We are watching you, your progress, we have no objection. Faculty did not have any kind of objection in awarding a teaching assistantship. You speak well in English, you have depth of knowledge, and so many superlatives about me. I said, thank you very much, sir. I will make sure that I stay through the entire course and earn my PhD. Then he said, no, we have made one more decision. Because you come from a country where the first language is not English, we have made a recommendation that you do write a master's thesis. You are a PhD student, we have already accepted, but you do a master's thesis which carries a credit of 6 hours, and then proceed for PhD. Then I said again, thank you, sir, because I am told that I have to write a master's thesis. In other words, when you write a monograph based on the research at the master's level, your thesis, 60 or 80 pages long only, that is actually a very good training in how to report research findings. So that, by that training, the faculty would know well that the candidate can proceed with PhD, write the thesis on his own without any assistance from anybody else. Because, scientific writing is an art and science. And there is actually no comparison with anything else. People may say, okay, scientific, in fiction also, writing is a art and science. And yes, I accept that. But actually, as far as I am concerned, as far as any graduate student is concerned, writing a monograph on the research findings and reporting and submitting for a PhD or a master's degree is a special art. This training is actually something that is going to see through a person's entire career, future career. Well, now you have to celebrate the award, right? What do we do? I invited Swapan Ghosh and Ghanshyam Srivastava to go to Marshall Street and offer to buy a fish sandwich and coke. Well, that is how we can celebrate. Then Ghanshyam said, no, we are going to meet in our home for dinner on the weekend. We are going to celebrate. And what you do is you provide the spirit and I will provide the fun, food. So as usual, we met there. There were 3 or 4 more guests there. One person is actually Cheryl Sen. He was doing a PhD in chemical engineering, and he was actually planning to get married with the Miss Geography professor, Mrs. Sen's sister, who was working in a bank. And these 2 people had some kind of what is called immigration to the United States. Miss Professor Sen as well as her sister Sen. Because they were born in England, their parents emigrated to United States and naturally got what is called a green card. So But then Salilson had to go to out of United States to Canada to get a job, because in spite of having a what is called a immigration or a green card in the United States, you have to seek a job in the Canadian under the Canadian government or in a private agency institution. So that is about the award of a assistantship to me in 1973 spring and the first week of March.